Your Worship, we're now streaming online live.
Address and indicate as to whether they support or oppose the proposed amendment. After the public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at the hearing. To conduct this process in a fair and equitable manner, following the public hearing, no submissions in any form from the public or the applicant regarding the amendment will be heard. Following the close of the public hearing, there will be no other opportunities to speak to the bylaw. Your opportunity is now. So just to clarify, there's just a couple quick points that I just do wish to clarify out of those statements. Council role this evening is to hear views and opinions of the public. Council may question individual speakers to clarify what is being said, but they will not debate or ask questions. Council also will not answer questions or debate. For the public, if the public asks, clarifications will be deferred to the planner to clarify a question, but they will not be answering questions. Deferring questions may be advised that you can contact our planning department afterwards for detailed answers to questions that you may have this evening. That doesn't restrict you from posing the question tonight, though. So I would still encourage you to pose the question, but don't expect to be answered this evening. That would happen at a later time. So saying all that, I'm going to move now on to 3.1, which is bylaw number 1908, Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 186, CD 31-3554, Ryder Hesjedal, bylaw number 1908, 2021. I will look to our planner, Dennis Carlson, to introduce the proposed bylaw and invite the applicant, Mike Fuji of District Group, to make a verbal presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. The general purpose of the proposed comprehensive development zone CD31 is to amend the current Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151 to create a comprehensive development zone for the property at 3554 Ryder Hesjedal Way. The comprehensive zone will contain permitted uses and development regulations, including a parking requirement of 1.6 spaces per dwelling unit. The notification period was from November 12th until today. And during this time, the public hearing binder was available by appointment at the front counter and was provided digitally on the city's website. Notices were placed in the Goldstream Gazette on November 17th and again on November 24th. Neighborhood notices were also sent out to 120 properties within 75 meters of the subject property. We received 1 response in support and 15 responses opposed, plus a petition also opposing. The applicant is in attendance and does wish to make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will look to, is he online?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council and staff. How are you all tonight?
Good, thank you.
My name is Mike Fuji, the development manager for District Group. The proposal before you tonight is to rezone the property located at 3554 Ryder Hesjedal Way from its current RBCD 3A zone to a new site-specific zone. The rezoning of this property will allow for the development of an additional purpose-built market rental apartment building. Despite COVID-19 restrictions being in place, 2 virtual public engagement sessions were hosted. Each virtual presentation was preceded with 2 advertisements in the Goldstream Gazette. Additionally, District sent out hard copy mailouts providing details of the public consultation presentation to properties within the 75-meter radius of the site. In each session, members of the community were provided with 3 options on how to send in any comments and/or questions regarding the rezoning application. These were able to be submitted either through email submissions sent to comments@monarchcolwood.com, telephone messages, and hard copy written submissions. The first session was held on February 25th and lasted until March 11th, 2021. Newspaper advertisements were placed in the Goldstream Gazette on February 10th, 2021, and again on February 17th, 2021. Once again, District provided written notification and instructions on how to be a part of the process to the properties within the prescribed 75-meter radius. Comments and feedback from the community were collected over a period of 2 weeks between February 25th until March 11th, 2021. The second session was held May 5th, 2021 until May 19th, 2021. 2 newspaper notifications were issued in the Goldstream Gazette on April 21st, 2021 and April 28th, 2021. Again, District provided written notification and instructions on how to be a part of the process to the properties within the prescribed 75-meter radius from the property. At the second virtual consultation session, the following changes were presented for comment. Building heights increased from 4 stories to 5 stories. Parking on site increased from 154 stalls to 174 stalls. And we relocated the location of the garbage enclosure based on comments received in the first round of engagement. Our proposal is consistent with the official community plan and is very relevant given its context to existing and future public transit, and the property is proximal to future commercial amenities and sources of employment. We recognize that the parking ratios are 1.6 per dwelling unit as part of our rezoning. Once again, the proposal is consistent with the OCP designations for the Seaside Village in relation to use and are well below the base permitted density allowed for the property, and the maximum FAR for the property is 3.5 FAR. We believe the rezoning of this property will allow for an outstanding addition to the city of Colwood as a whole. Members of our consultant team are available should there be any clarifications required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will now seek public input. Each person will be given an opportunity to speak. Excuse me. When everyone has spoken once, there will be a second and third call, at which times you will be able to speak again. Because we are a hybrid meeting, some people will be logging online and asking to speak. So if you are signing into the meeting, I ask that you please raise your virtual hand by pressing *9 on your phone, and you will be put in the queue to speak. If you are watching the meeting live and wish to speak, you may follow the instructions on the screen. When it is your turn to speak, you will be identified by the last 3 digits of your phone number, at which time I would ask that you would please press *6 to unmute yourself. I will now look for public comment. And just so that everybody also understands, if you've prepared notes, and I am keeping a timer for 5 minutes, and you go past that 5 minutes, I can do one of 2 things. I can give you a 30-second warning and that, or I can just cut you off at 5 minutes. You can go sit down and then come back after everybody else has had an opportunity to speak and finish your comments. So whichever people would prefer, just let me know before you start speaking if you plan on going past 5 minutes. And I can facilitate that. So just leaving it open. Please, I'm sorry, please come to the podium if you wish to speak. Again, with COVID, it's really, in past, what we've done is ask people to line up, but we're not going to ask people to do that tonight with COVID. But if you are prepared to speak, what I would ask you to do is as the person's leading the podium, please consider standing up and moving towards the podium so that we don't have long pauses in between. Thank you. Mr. English, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, so, okay, thank you. So probably what I'll do is go back and forth. So we'll do the public and then I'll go online. While I'm online, the next public person can come up to the podium and we'll go back and forth that way.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is John English. I'm the president of the Royal Bay Homeowners Association. And I'm here tonight to let you know that our association is strongly opposed to what District Group is proposing at 360 Latoria that we've referred it to in the past. Now it's called 3554 Ryder Hesselstall Way. In our view, the process that's been followed in planning and the development of this site lacks integrity. It's deeply flawed and lacks legitimacy. The developers, realtors advertised and promoted home sales in this area being built with community amenity being built. That was promoted for years after the developers had quietly decided not to follow through on building the widely publicized community amenity on this site. Whether this was intentional or the result of negligence, everyone involved, developers in the city, were complicit in this very significant misrepresentation to home buyers in this area. We've previously documented this issue and have communicated it to you in the past. District Group purchased this property from Gablecraft to exploit the mixed use designation. The reason this site was designated mixed use in the OCP was to facilitate the building of restaurants that was supposed to be built at this public site. So instead of restaurants, and a public site. What we now have is high density residential development with very, very minimal commercial development at all. There's a little tiny coffee shop, and I've seen bigger ones in gas stations, and a little tiny convenience store, same thing. So district sought and obtained city approval to build a large high density residential building on the site. The city should have rejected district's proposal at the outset because it's essentially a residential development that they're proposing in a mixed use intended area. And from our point of view, as I said, the little tiny coffee shop on one end with the little tiny convenience store is hardly going to do much for the city of Colwood in expanding its commercial base. It makes it a bit of a joke and a mockery of even using mixed use as a designation for the area. It's also not compatible with the intention of mixed use. Mixed use, as you can see, if people look at the OCP, it clearly shows that the main floors of these buildings are typically all commercial. And if you look at Langford's development at Belmont Market, that is exactly what you see, all commercial development on the main floor. This development is hardly commercial at all. So district's behavior has demonstrated for us incredible disrespect for the city's requirements for community consultation. I went for months trying to communicate with Mr. Fuji and did not get a response, but we can go into that another day. Soliciting community input on plans to build a second 4-story high density residential building on that site, and then applying to the city for approval for a 5-story building on the site is a joke, because Mr. Fuji did not tell you how many people responded positively to their proposal versus negatively. I can tell you the results are massive of opposition to it. So in our view, the behavior of district group indicates they clearly really don't care about the damage to quality of life for Colwood citizens and taxpayers living in the area. It's all about making money. It's all about getting more parking spaces so they can shoehorn in some more units to sell and or to rent. Well, we appreciate Councillor Baxter's good intentions in proposing a compromise to the number of minimum parking stalls required at the site. We can't support it. We think that the city has already compromised more than enough. And by having the site, which was supposed to be mixed use, actually become a residential high density development. And we think that any competent business person would know that a developer like a district group or any other developer who knows what they're doing would actually run the numbers ahead of time and ensure that they can make money based upon the existing bylaws. And so this isn't necessary for them to make money. They are going to make a good return if they had have just stayed within the existing bylaws, but they're not. They're pushing for even more, which is just going to be a bonus for them at the expense of the people in our community.
Mr. English, that's 5 minutes.
Yep. So I'll just wrap up on 30 seconds and just say that, so we're asking our mayor and the city council to do the right thing and protect and support the city and the interests of the city residents and taxpayers from an overly aggressive and unprincipled developer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will go next to who's online. Ms. Irving?
Your worship, I have no hands up online currently.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought we had somebody. No, it's fine. So sorry, we do not have anybody online. So the next person, whoever would like to speak. I don't know. Sure.
Mike, that helps. A procedural question here, though. Is the mask required at the podium or no? Okay, sorry. Just for the benefit, I know there's a few hearing impaired folks and I'm not the most articulate at the best of times. So
I appreciate that. Yeah. So just so that everybody did hear, please, if you're at your podium, you may remove your mask.
I've got some notes, but I think I'll skip them because I think this is an issue that we're all very well versed in. I have an uncle who's a retired New York Supreme Court judge, and he would say to me in many philosophical discussions that when you consider a decision, when you apply the letter of the law, you'll make a decision. But he said, when you consider the spirit of the law, you'll make a great decision. And that resonated with me, and I think it's directly relevant to what we're here to talk about today. For what we need to talk about is not just the zoning and what's on the paper. It's about what was intended. And I know Mr. English, made those points that, there was the former landowner made commitments both to the city of Colwood and to the residents and to the people buying real estate that they would provide a community amenity. I imagine that the council of the day, provided that mixed use zoning to accommodate that. It was a great thing. Just the year we moved in 2019 to 370 Latoria adjacent to there, my children would go over to the empty lot that's now the first stage of this project and build little dirt jumps for their bikes. And I went over to see, what shovel are they using? And it was this faux gold-plated City of Colwood shovel that former Mayor Hamilton had broken ground with. And, I had to see what it was about. It was actually still on the Colwood website in 2019, the picture of her breaking ground with the developers talking about a neighborhood house. Of course, materials were still down at the Gablecraft home site at that time and in real estate offices all over, advertising this wonderful community amenity. But, to avoid a PR mess, which surely was to follow, and, to maybe maximize the value that gained from rezoning this property, they sold it off. Can't blame district for looking at the zoning, coming in, buying it. As Mr. English said, they're in the business of making money. I don't fault them for that. My business is about making money as well. But again, I need to bring it back to what was the intent for this property. And that's what I ask you to consider is the zoning is the letter of the law. The spirit of the zoning and of the OCP should be a major factor in your consideration. The community didn't come out in the hundreds. We had over 100 people at Olympic View Golf Club in opposition to this. John's got emails just all over the place. I've had people knocking on my door. I should mention that I represent the 50 plus homeowners adjacent to this property at 370 Latoria as the president of the Strata Council. They've tasked me to speak on their behalf as well. And they wanted to relay the message that this isn't about density. It isn't about the people that would move in there. You don't buy a townhouse in a construction zone if you have concerns about development and density. So I'll be very clear about that. For me, it is about what is intended, and that is the spirit of the OCP and the spirit of the zoning, and the fact that the community has spoken loud and clear and long for over 2 years now to you, to Mr. Fuji, to everyone else involved, that this isn't the right fit for this property. So I ask you to consider your constituents when you make your decision and do what's right for the community. Remember that we are the folks that pay taxes in this community. We send our children to school in this community. We park in that area. We live in that area. District developments doesn't, and they won't. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, but I would ask that the audience please don't clap or boo this evening. We do have somebody now? Sure. Okay, sure. So I will come back to my apologies to the public that's in the room. I'm just going to read what. Sorry, I'm just looking for where that was. Oh, I'm sorry, here it is. So if you are signed into the meeting, we'd ask that you please raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone, and you will be put in the queue to speak. If you're watching the meeting live and wish to speak, please follow the instructions on the screen that is in front of you. When it is your turn to speak, you will be identified by the last 3 digits of your phone number, at which time we'd ask that you please press *6. So for those watching online, I would really encourage you to hit *9 to get yourself into the queue. Otherwise, we will not be calling on you. Coming back to the public in the room, we'd look to the next person who wishes to speak. And I'm sorry, Ian, Mr. Ward, did you do your name and address? I can't remember. No, okay. We'll get it though. And
My name's Warren Brown. I live at 3529 Proudfoot Place, which is in the Royal Bay area. This is kind of an interesting experience, not having spoken in public in fundamentally 2 years. So if you'll bear with me a bit. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the rezoning of that land at 3554 Hedgedahl Way. I submitted a written response, but I'll spare you the detail because I have a tendency to dive into the detail, and so I won't read the darn thing. First off, Mayor and Council, I want to take a minute to realize and thank you for the investment of the time and energy you put into your jobs. I'm not sure people realize how much time and energy it takes to do what you do, including getting rid of Scotch broom on Saturdays when it's raining. When I see repeated rezoning efforts like this that are having to be dealt with, I'm thinking maybe you have to say no more forcefully. I think you need to reduce what I think is a frivolous request for commercial interests and really focus on the needs of the citizens. I think we've done really well up to date, but I understand, and Ian kind of pointed this out, the site's been a lightning rod for the community. As you know, the community house is still sticking in our craw. Over 100 citizens attended a meeting called to discuss this with Gablecraft at that time. It sparked the formation of the Homeowners Association, which is a pretty powerful message. Some 377 signatures were garnered on a petition that spoke to the community's desire to stop rezoning. And yet, here we are again. I think that's not a good use of your time. I encourage you to heed this latest round of negative feedback. I oppose this rezoning. The current building with 72 units nears the allowable limit that I calculate of all the details that I put in my submission. And with that, I say, we're done and dusted. We're done. The developer basically has now reapplied 129 units. It doesn't make any sense by my calculations. It's time to say no. It's come time to honor the zoning that this developer bought into. It's time to recognize that they modeled it, they bought it, and they will profit handsomely from it. Whereas, as is, they need no more. They need no more from us. In my written submission, I've done the calculations based on FAR and based on parking. Nothing justifies this request. The application is simply an attempt, in my mind, to push council and see how far and pliant they will be. It begs the question of who you serve. And I think in this case, not in all cases, in this case, it's a binary choice. So what will the district do with the remaining land? I submit that's not council's concern. They bought it, they own it, they can do what they want. Perhaps they can sell it and someone else can come along and propose perhaps something else. I have a suggestion. I would ask district to go back and perhaps other developers to build a one-story center with casual commercial space for daycare, coffee shop, small library, maybe a barber shop. God knows I need it. In other words, commercial services that a growing community needs within the easy access and not across a busy street. The reasoning is simple. The lack of planned commercial space that I'm seeing coming along and the tax revenue that accrues is important to this council and to this municipality. I remember this council promising to grow commercial tax base, and that's important to me. If you do not insist on more commercial build out, by my calculations, you will run a structural deficit that will be serious within 2 years as you attempt to maintain the infrastructure for the significant residential build out that you've approved in Royal Bay. Think about that. Residential does not pay for itself. You know that. I know that. Any engineer can tell you that. And if your engineers are not telling you that, you better get better engineers. Royal Bay, in my mind, can be the jewel of the West Shore. But rough gems need work. They need careful work. And I beg you, cut and polish carefully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, yes, Amanda. Okay, what is the last three? I'll let you introduce the last three digits. Okay, sorry, Becky, could you please introduce the speaker online who wishes to speak?
Your worship, I don't see a hand up for someone looking to speak.
Sorry, I can see the last three digits are 304. Can you please press *6 to unmute yourself, state your name and address for the record?
Hi, I'm waiting for the 791 application.
I'm sorry. We're having a hard time hearing you.
Hi, I was waiting for the 791 application, so I'm early.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, yes, and for those individuals who have logged on late, or not late, but just after the meeting started, we are presently on bylaw number 1908, which is CD 3554 Ryder Heshtall. I will ensure with staff that we don't have anyone wishing to speak to bylaw number 1908. Doesn't look like it, so I will look back to the public. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to speak to bylaw number 1908? I will then call for a second time. And I'll wait for, well, at least 30 seconds to allow both people online, and if somebody decides in the room that they wish to make comments, I will give you another opportunity to do that. And I apologize to those in the room, but 30 seconds feels like an eternity. But when you're online, it takes a minute to get things to happen. So it may seem like we're pausing a lot longer than we need to, but. Okay, I'm going to say that was my second call. I'm going to do a third call now. This is a third time for anyone wishing to speak to bylaw number 1908. And at this point, anyone, even those individuals who have already spoken, you're welcome to come and speak a second time if you wish to. And I will wait 30 more seconds. And I will just ensure that there is nobody, Becky or Amanda, that anyone online wishing to speak to bylaw number 1908. No, okay. Okay, I am going to last and final chance. Anyone? Okay, then I am going to say that the public hearing for bylaw number 1908 has concluded, which will move us on to 3.2. This is bylaw number 1912, Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 187, CD 32, 791 Drummond Way, bylaw number 1912, 2021. And I do unfortunately need to read the statement again. So my apologies to those in the room that have already heard this. This public hearing is convened pursuant to section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow any person who believes their interest is affected by the proposed bylaws to be given an opportunity to be heard or present written submissions. The purpose of the public hearing is for council to hear the views and opinions of the public. Council will not answer questions or debate proposals or proposed bylaws except to provide clarification. You will not be discouraged or prevented from making your views known. However, it is important that you restrict your remarks to the matters contained in the proposed bylaw. The following rules will apply to public input. No sound recordings or PowerPoint presentations will be permitted. Comments must be kept to 5 minutes and be respectful of council, city staff, and other members of the public in attendance. Those in attendance will refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion, whether in favor of or opposition to any application or argument. Inappropriate language, outbursts, or criticism aimed at individuals or groups will not be permitted. A speaker will not debate a point of view with another speaker, but will seek clarification through the chair. Each person will be given an opportunity to speak. Once everyone has had a chance to speak for the first time, those who wish to do so may present additional or new information. Those who address council will be asked to provide their name, address, and indicate as to whether they support or oppose the proposed amendment. After the public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at the hearing. To conduct this process in a fair and equitable manner, following the public hearing, no submissions in any form from the public or the applicant regarding the amendment will be heard. Following the close of the public hearing, there will be no other opportunities to speak to the bylaw. Planner Yasmin Hernandez will introduce the proposed bylaw and invite the applicant, David Smith of McIlhenny, to make a presentation. And I think I said McIlhenny wrong. McIlhenny, thank you.
Yes. Good evening. So the general purpose of the proposed comprehensive development zone CD 32 is to amend the current Colwood land use bylaw number 151, 1989, to create a comprehensive development zone for the property at 791 Drummond Way. The comprehensive development zone contains land use regulations to enable the construction of a building strata development comprised of 43 townhomes. The notification period was extended from November 12th until today. During this time, the public hearing binder was available by appointment at the front counter and was provided digitally on the city's website. Notices were placed in the Goldstream Gazette on November 17 and November 24th. Neighborhood notices were sent to the 42 properties located within 75 meters of the subject property. We received 1 written submission in support of the application and 6 in opposition. The applicant's team is in attendance tonight and is here to make a presentation.
Great, thank you. Whoever wishes to speak, come on up to the podium. Sorry, could you hit the mic?
You got her.
There you go.
Yeah. So good evening, Dale Douglas with McIlhenny. And I'm excited to be back here again with our team and make a brief presentation about our project on Drummond Way. I want to thank Mayor and Council for allowing us to make this presentation tonight. We spent the last year working closely with Colwood staff and our technical team in creating the project design that's being presented tonight and that we brought to the previous council meetings. Our work's been guided all along with our professional team of consultants who are here tonight, including Dave Smith, our senior planner from McIlhenny, Justin Gammon, our lead architect from Christine Lintock Architects, Chris Winjack, our landscape architect from Ladder Landscape Architects, Peter Ferguson, our senior civil engineer from McIlhenny, Andy Kading, our transportation engineer from Watt Consulting, and Sandra Hemstock, our professional biologist from McIlhenny. Their insights and reports have directed us on how to work best with this site. We've also been before council twice, and we've taken guidance from your input. In addition, we've conducted a neighborhood Zoom meeting and chat in September to respond to comments and questions about this development. Through this thorough process, including considerable direction from Colwood staff, we have determined that our stormwater management system will ensure that the post-development runoff will be equivalent to the pre-development runoff, that the existing downstream sanitary sewer system and the water supply system on Drummond Way have the capacities to service the proposed development. That Drummond Way post-development will continue to operate as a local road with sufficient traffic capacity for this development. And that along the project frontage, curb gutter, sidewalk, parking stalls, and a mailbox pullout will be constructed. Our project team's here tonight. It's important that we're here to listen to the public, hear from mayor and council. We're also available to answer any questions if so directed. I want to thank you for your time. And now I'm going to pass you on to our lead architect to just give you a brief tour through the project on the site. So I'd like to ask Justin Gammon to come up. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public, staff. It is certainly a pleasure to be back before you again and in person. I'm going to provide a very brief summary of the project this evening, just to sort of underline the basic principles that we've been pursuing. Next slide, please. So just for orientation, north is up. Obviously, the subject site is centered in this slide. Langford Center is to the north. As you can see, substantial open properties to the east and west, including Drummond Park to the east and Sedgwick Park off to the west. The site obviously is bounded at the north, at the top of the slide here, by Drummond Way and by Zapata Pace at the south, at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please. The project existing site, I'm just going to analyze really briefly in these 3 slides. The top obviously is a satellite image. In this case, all of these have been rotated approximately 90 degrees, so north is now to the right, just for simplicity. The top slide shows the existing site. It's clearly a steeply sloping north-facing site. It was previously logged, and this is second or even third growth. The second slide is a graphic illustration of the slopes on the site. The lowest portion to the right-hand side of the north by Drummond in green is the lowest sloped portion of the site. Blue shows intermediate sloping, and red shows the steepest sloping portions of the site are greater than 30 degrees slope. The last detail on this slide shows an overlay of the various ecological sites or regions within this lot, taken from the survey previously discussed. The thing that I really would like to identify here is the large yellow portion, which identifies previously disturbed areas, largely from the logging. You can see where the logging road went up through the center. Also, the pink area shows Douglas fir and salal, and the green areas show areas of rocky outcrops or arbutus and Douglas firs. Next slide, please. So the proposal itself responds to policy, in particular the OCP and the Housing Needs Report. In particular, we have done a great deal of work to address adaptive site principles, which are really enshrined in the OCP. I think probably the best way to describe adaptive design principles is to listen to the site. What is the site telling you? How does it want to respond to human intervention? So we started by dedicating a full third of the site at the southern portion of the left of this slide here in the darker green area. That's a full third of the site that will be completely undisturbed and protected as parkland. To access the site, we're going to provide through the development public access through boardwalks and steps coming up from Drummond all the way to the upper turnaround to access the new park from the north. And additionally, there is an existing statutory right-of-way coming from Zapata that would allow public access to the park from the south along the ridge. In addition to this, we are dedicating an additional 7% that would be private green space. This would be protected in perpetuity. for a total protected green space of the site of 40%. So that 40% of the entire site will be protected. Additional to that, we are leaving, as you can see identified on the edges of this slide, existing trees along the buffer with the adjacent properties to the east and the west. In total, we will be preserving the best and the most ecologically sensitive portions of the site. The Rocky Knolls, a large and spectacular ridge that runs along the eastern property line, and a very mature and absolutely glorious arbutus grove that currently exists there. The major intervention in any kind of site like this is the road, and we spent a great deal of time thinking about that before we did anything else. And again, adaptive design principles, we listened to the site, we analyzed it closely. We looked at how we could run the road up through the site, leaving the best pieces alone. The road itself is wider than the minimum. It's a 7-meter road where 6 meters is what's required. We have worked closely with the fire chief, who has approved the road for access by the largest vehicle in their fleet, the Colwood 57 ladder truck. So the development itself is 43 3-story townhouses. So these are ground-oriented townhouses. There will be no suites in these. These will just be the townhouses as proposed, which addresses a direct request from the housing needs report for this kind of typology on this type of housing that adds diversity to the community. You'll note that the buildings themselves are clustered into 12 pockets along the road, again, minimizing where we create these interventions into the site. 2 parking stalls are provided for each unit, and an additional 10 visitor parking stalls are distributed through the site. This is in addition to the frontage works, which Dale mentioned earlier. The landscape itself, other than the naturalized or the undisturbed pieces that we're leaving behind, will be highly naturalized. And the intention is that over time, we will invite nature to move in from these undisturbed edges and infiltrate into the project itself, creating really a community in the rainforest, which is really what we were after. We will be working, as Dale also indicated, to manage stormwater runoff. Obviously, this is a critical thing at any time, but I think recent events have really underscored just how important this kind of adaptive planning is, where we listen to the site. And we had introduced from the earliest stages the idea of working with nature to collect and manage the stormwater runoff that will be coming from this site. And we will be doing that through a series of rain gardens built into the project that will be integrated into a larger civil works to capture, manage, and detain stormwater runoff, so that the current condition with the natural site there will certainly be greatly improved by the works that are being proposed. Next slide, please. In this final slide, I want to just sort of show an overlay or a synthesis of the 2 things that I've talked about, the adaptive planning and the principles and the environmental analysis, and then the project itself. So what we see here is largely the project itself really focuses around that yellow portion that I discussed early, where the site is already disturbed. The ground has signs of lots of man-made activity, and it's filled with invasive plants and species which will be removed through the course of the development. Secondly, you can see that the road winds its way around largely the steepest portions of the site, again, working to minimize cut and fill to the best of our abilities. And I note that we have succeeded in creating a project in which no retaining wall will be taller than 1.2 meters, which on a site of this nature was certainly a process to evolve to. And again, I think I would just finish by showing or indicating just the volume of the site that will be left undisturbed. The full third at the left-hand side, which again is the most spectacular portion. of the site and the fact that we are now going to be providing public access up through into the site where previously one wouldn't have had even the opportunity to see some of these spectacular groves that are up there. So with that, I think that's, I'll just leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now seek public input. Each person will be given the opportunity to speak. When everybody has spoken once, there will be a second and third call at which time you will also be able to speak again. If you are signed into the meeting, please raise your virtual hand by pressing *9 on your phone and you will be put in the queue to speak. If you are watching the meeting live and wish to speak, please follow the instructions that are on the screen presently. When it is your turn to speak, you will be identified by the last 3 digits of your phone number, and at which time I will ask you to press *6 to unmute yourself. Saying that, I will look to the public and see if there's anyone who wishes to speak. Yeah, please come on up. And there you go. And if you could, I've been bad at this, so if you could please say your name and address, and that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, so hello again. My name is Matthew Chapman. My wife and I live at 794 Drummond Way, which is located directly across from 791 Drummond Way. I am speaking in opposition to the rezoning application. So I would like to focus today on how the proposed development conflicts with Colwood's official community plan, bylaw 1700. As one reads through the OCP, which I will refer to it from here on, it is clear that climate change is forefront throughout the document. The term is used 28 times, actually. So as we are now painfully aware, particularly in the last few weeks, climate change is real, and we've been observing it in full force. The property at issue is, as was just presented, a steep, largely steep, naturally forested hillside with a small wetland at its base running parallel to Drummond Way along its frontage. That wetland is what is referred to just now as the disturbed soil area. I made a video of the property that's included with my written submissions. I encourage you to look at it. It's a link to a YouTube video. So section 11.2.3.1 of the OCP, titled Tree Protection and Enhancement, requires the protection of existing trees that do not pose danger to humans, support weather and wind protection, and enhance the overall tree canopy and forest ecosystems. By prohibiting more trees and vegetation clearance than is necessary to install services, and critically for the purposes of here, quote, prohibiting tree removal on steep slopes in order to protect soil from erosion and high storm water runoff volumes. The proposed development would topple and uproot almost 100 trees on a hillside, much of it steep, and would completely eliminate wetland frontage that is, as we speak, right now, holding a very significant volume of rainwater from the last few weeks' storms. That water is slowly draining into a ditch and culvert network. Section 2.1C of the OCP states that in sensitive ecosystems, drainage should not be altered in a way that increases or decreases the amount of surface or groundwater or the quality of water. Section 22.1D states that, quote, development on steep slopes and hillsides must not alter quality, timing, or quantity of runoff from the site. The protection of trees and vegetations on hillsides as required by section 11.2.3.1 were included to accomplish this very purpose. So allowing the removal of nearly 100 trees and considerable wetland at the frontage of the base of the hill would, I think, clearly forever change the water flow in the area. Whatever might take its place would be man-made engineered. So the OCP's hillsides and shoreline area plan is, quote, exceptionally supportive of protecting natural features and sensitive ecological areas, end quote. Completely blasting 1 hectare of hillside and eliminating all wetlands to create an artificial topography for development should be so obviously in violation of this bylaw as to by itself lead to an obvious decision. There are, however, many more ways in which the development plan conflicts with the OCP. Section 6.2.3, together with 5.1.6, calls for the city to, quote, maximize the proportion of residents who can access transit and meet daily needs within walking distance of home, specifying that it will do this by, quote, focusing residential growth within 200 meters of real travel distance of the transit growth area. This cannot happen with 791 Drummond Way, which is 500 meters of real travel distance from transit growth area and down 46 meters of hillside. Section 6.2.1.1 states in part that Colwood will advance development plans that protect ecological areas, enable complete communities, increase housing and non-automobile transportation choice, and significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Once again, the proposed development would completely destroy a hectare of natural ecology to create dense housing outside of a transit growth area with no pedestrian infrastructure linking to any community or commercial services. Residents will be forced to rely on automobiles. Greenhouse gas emissions will increase. Section 6.2.4 of the OCP calls for Colwood to maintain existing character within existing single detached neighborhoods and allow residents to meet more daily needs within walking distance. It has been suggested that placing 43 strata vertical row townhomes on a 1 hectare lot directly into the middle of a pre-existing neighborhood of only 18 fully detached non-strata homes on approximately 2 hectares of land would somehow maintain the existing character of the neighborhood. I submit that's simply illogical. I will finish by encouraging council to reference my written and video submissions when considering next steps. In those submissions, I list other ways in which the development plan quite clearly conflicts with the OCP. But I want to drive the point home that we as a world and as a community are today at a crossroads. We can choose to adapt to the reality of climate change, or we can continue with business as usual. The OCP is clear which path Colwood should take. If the rezoning is allowed and if the proposed development proceeds, we as a community will be choosing to blindly walk the plank, eyes wide open, into a future where we will, without doubt, come to regret destroying densely forested, ecologically sensitive hillsides and wetlands. We will also be sending a clear signal to our own community and others outside of it that Colwood's official community plan means very little. I have full confidence that council will weigh the choice before it and make well-informed decisions with respect to our Colwood's official community plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking to see if there's anybody online. If you're online, please hit *9 to raise your hand.
*6.
No, *6 is to unmute.
Oh, so *6. We have 304 is unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Perfect. So my name is Eric Solomon, and I reside at 773 Drummond Way, and I've been a resident since '93. And I'm opposed to the rezoning of 791 as currently proposed. Let me start by saying I do appreciate the thought and effort that's gone into the process thus far. I think Colwood staff has been very helpful in answering our questions throughout this process where they could. And I have to say I'm pleased to see that we're not proposing to completely strip the hillside like our municipal neighbor, and we're trying to listen to the site, as one of the developers said. The attention to drainage is appreciated, and hopefully it'll be enough. And the thought to protecting existing trees where possible is definitely appreciated. However, there are some local issues that are not being considered. And I think with a few tweaks, the proposal could become more acceptable. And my concerns are as follows. With regards to density, the proposed development represents a 200% increase to the homes of our small neighborhood. And while the number may fit the formulas in the OCP plans on paper, I think it's not necessarily right for the neighborhood. I think many would be more supportive if there was a reduction in the number of units allowed to be built. Half would be better. Keep the same idea for the layout of the site, but maybe put more space in between the units. By allowing the density for this lot to be at 43 homes, I think it's going to set a precedent for the other lot owners in the area when they decide to develop. This means we could be seeing over 100 or more homes eventually, which is really not a direction that we want our neighborhood to go. And I realize this hearing is for 791 property, but what is decided for this application, for this rezoning, is going to shape the future development, and the density does matter. And we don't always have to max things out. Just because we could put 43 in doesn't necessarily mean we have to. The other issue I have is with traffic, which I think has been maybe a little bit lost in some of this. I want to point out that the traffic study that was conducted was done in an off-normal time. It was after Labor Day, before regular school schedule started, and during a period in the pandemic where many people are still in a work-from-home situation. So as a result, the data may not be representative of real use patterns. The part of the traffic study that I'm concerned about, it did not address an issue with traffic going east on Drummond Way at the point of the limited vision ahead signs where the road rises steeply uphill. Currently, if you're driving east on Drummond, there are usually cars legally and properly parked on the north side of the road. And as there are no sidewalks, pedestrians must use the roadway. This means there's usually room for one car to safely transit the hill when pedestrians are on the road. People tend to drift to the center of the road when approaching the hill as they really don't know what they're going to encounter. And when you do meet a car coming over the hill at speed, when a family's walking their dog, the experience can be quite intense to say the least. Now, if you add more pedestrian and vehicle traffic to the mix, the rezoning, as it's approved, is going to add likely 86 more cars to the neighborhood in the near term. If people are rushing out to work and out of the new development trying to get out to their jobs, without a sidewalk or a wider road between the limited vision ahead signs, there's going to be more serious problems. And I feel that this particular issue should be studied and addressed before any more rezoning is approved. In conclusion, I'd like to say that I hope, in addition to listening to the site, that Council will listen to the residents of Drummond Way. Having watched the past proceedings on the rezoning, it seems that Council is eager to proceed, and they've suggested that perhaps the residents should be more acceptive of the proposed density. But please remember that this development is going to forever alter the Drummond Way neighborhood, and it's going to impact the surrounding neighborhoods. And I'd ask Council to consider studying and fixing the traffic issues I've raised in my previous points, and rezoning the property, but with fewer units. Colwood would still grow, but at a more reasonable rate. And thank you for considering my points. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you very much. I will now look back to the chambers. If there's any public wishing to speak to this, please come on up to the podium. And oh yeah, come on. Thank you. And if you can just hit the mic, the red button, and then your name and address, that'd be great.
Hi, my name is Rob Clausen. I live at 3236 Hawkswood Place, which is adjacent to Drummond Way. I'm speaking in opposition of the proposed development as it stands. The proposal does not take into consideration the impact of the density increase would have on the existing community through rezoning it from its current RS1 zoning, which is in line with the surrounding properties, to comprehensive residential zoning, which does not exist currently in the immediate area. Currently, there are approximately 35 homes in the immediate area leading up to Cecil Blog that would undeniably be impacted from the decision to rezone this property as it stands. The current estimate for vehicles per household is about 1.5 vehicles, which would mean that we're adding approximately 53 vehicles to that street right now. As the previous speaker had mentioned, the road has very limited visibility and no sidewalk, so it poses incredible risk to pedestrians and local residents to add that amount of traffic without any kind of plan or looking into it. To summarize, I believe the magnitude of the proposed change is too large and would cause major issues for all the residents in the area, and I consider council to address that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have another hand?
Yes, we do. So we have 628. Please press *6 to unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Peterson, and I live at 3262 Zapata Place. Thank you for the opportunity to express my thoughts about the rezoning application for 791 Drummond Way. As I said, I live on Zapata Place, and one of two properties that directly abut the Drummond Way property at the top of the mountain. I oppose this rezoning application for a number of reasons. This property should be preserved by the city, perhaps in collaboration with other groups and municipalities for recreation and conservation. I was one of the many residents of Colwood who participated in the Master Parks Plan Survey, which sought input from the community many months before I became aware of this property being subject to development. And I shared the view in the survey that Triangle Mountain has a great need for parks, both nature parks and neighborhood parks. Many of us in the area have dogs, and we walk our dogs along Qualta, Crescent, Fulton, and Walford Road. And we use a private septic field that serves the subdivision on Sewell. In the winter, we often have a few weeks of heavy snow, and we take our dogs with them to play there. I've observed people sitting on the rock outcrops, having lunch and reading a book in the summer months. I think it's quite sad, for lack of a better word, that my neighborhood has to use a septic treatment field as a park. And as for the families on Sewell, the children play on the road. It was my vision when the survey was completed that the property could be preserved by Colwood as a nature park with especially sensitive areas to be conserved, and possibly a neighborhood park at the lower elevation. My husband and I walked the property to look at the flag trees and so forth to try to get a sense of where the park would actually begin, because as the drawings show, it's going to be directly behind our property and my neighbor's property. It was really difficult to determine with feet on the ground, but I have to say when I look at the drawing that's marked as Area 2, it just seems quite small to me. There were planning staff who walked on the area of the property, and I appreciate them coming out and taking a look with me. And they agreed that much of the proposed park is not suited to general public use because it's very steep and would require a lot of steps like Latoria Creek Park. And more importantly, much of the area has very ecologically sensitive habitat that should be not accessible to the public. And I agree that public access should be restricted for that reason. But that means that there is no park per se, at least not what most people might think of as a park amenity. And the applicant's materials show an access point off Zapata Place next to my home. I'm concerned about how this access point will be created to give public access, but also to restrict certain areas where needed. I acknowledge that the lower elevations of the property have been disturbed, likely due to logging some decades ago, and there are invasive species. And I thought perhaps that might be a place to incorporate a neighborhood park with trail connections to the upper elevations of the property. Most importantly to me, this property and the adjacent lots, quite frankly, represent the last vestiges of large-sized complete ecosystems that once existed throughout our community. The Garry Oak, Arbutus, Douglas firs, with a complex understory with shrubs, mosses, lichen, herbaceous plants, and these are critical to be protected. The City of Colwood has expressed a commitment to protecting our urban forest. Indeed, it's been promoted as a valued feature of our city, and one step was to put into place the tree protection bylaw, and that defined protected trees. Those protected trees are characteristic of this property, and as they're identified in the agenda package, and they will be cut down for this subdivision, and they'll be gone forever. And I share the view of many residents, including neighbors that I've talked to about the tree bylaw and the subdivisions in our area, and they feel that there's a double standard which exists for everyday homeowners who go through the permit process to remove a single tree, and yet they see these large stands of trees, including protected trees, being cut down for development. Don't get me wrong, I really do support the bylaw, and I believe it was long overdue for our community, but we all see around us development notices in areas that clearly, if they're approved by council, it's going to result in further loss of protected trees and the degradation and fragmentation of our urban tree canopy. According to the applicant's documentation, the area that has an invasive species, from what I can see, it's not that large of an area. This subdivision will destroy a considerable swath of a healthy ecosystem. I've hiked this property many times, so I'm familiar with its features. And another point I wish to make is that there is a large snag that I vehemently object to being cut down or topped. For the last 12 years that I've lived on my home, I've observed raptors that use the snag as a perch, and I have many photos of eagles and hawks over the years. Even if the snag were left intact, I'm very worried that the subdivision itself, due to its density and proximity and the activity that will come to the area with up to 43 families, will deter the raptors from returning to this tree. So my question is, are these majestic birds, which are one important part of our ecosystem on Triangle Mountain, just another casualty of our desire to live here and build, build, build? Now to the proposed park. While I'm pleased that the zoning application contemplates the upper elevations of the property to be left
So
undeveloped.
I'm sorry,
and
sorry, I have to interrupt you. You've gone your 5 minutes.
Okay.
What I can do is we can keep you online though, so that you can finish your remarks. And then I'll just go back to the public, and if there's no other public, then I can come right back to you. My apologies
that's
for
awesome.
interrupting.
Thank you so much. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
So please don't hang up on her.
Okay.
I will go back to the public in the room. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to speak? Please come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for spending your time and evening to review this rezoning. My name is Roger Schoberg from 800 Drummond Way, and I've submitted a written submission of opposition to this development. I just want to revisit some of my submission. I've made a number of points. My first concern was the water runoff, and based on most recent events in BC, this is of great concern to me. Climate change has made the rains here and the new atmospheric rivers and stuff totally unpredictable. Anything that they could have designed for controlling water runoff, and and even anything they have designed, it's a man-made design. I don't understand how they could maintain it and keep the maintenance to keep it, working as designed, because we know that all these culvert systems and rivers and ditches throughout the province are now clogging, and then water bypasses. My property is immediate below this, and that's where I'm going to be retiring one day. That's where I plan to live, and I don't want my property to be washed out. It's a very real problem that it could happen. Then also the character of the zones, that was my second issue. Currently, it's single dwelling lots in the neighborhood. To have 43 townhomes, it totally disrupts the character of the zone, and so that doesn't follow within the community plan. It's in traffic volume. Traffic volume studies have been done recently, and with COVID and working from home, reduced business, schooling from home, the numbers that they've attained can't be a true representation of what is going to happen once things open up again. So everybody's concerned about traffic through there. I think it's going to be a multiple higher than what they've done through the studies. Also, the road that exits the development is immediately adjacent to my property, and I can see vehicles speeding out of the development, especially if we have a bit of snowfall or something. Everybody has their summer tires they run here in the winter, colliding into my vehicles, into my front room. Like, I'm concerned I'm going to have a accident happening often. And then also doing this development opens the door for future developments on adjacent properties to be exactly the same. And if we're worried about the density of 43 townhomes in that area, another 200 or whatever there would be if we do the adjacent properties, the neighborhood is going to be just, the infrastructure can't handle it. And then as well as deforestation. It's, we're worried about climate change, and we want to maintain the character of our land in BC. That's what makes it so beautiful. Townhomes don't fit that picture in my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have a different person online wishing to speak? First time? Okay, I will look to the room then. Is there any first-time speakers in the room that would like to speak? Okay, then what I am going to do is go back online to, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the lady's name.
Elizabeth.
Peterson, Mrs. Peterson. So we'll go back to her. Could you hit *6 for me?
Thank you for allowing me to finish what I wanted to say. I really appreciate that. So I just wanted to comment on the proposed park. So while I'm pleased that the zoning application contemplates the upper elevations of the property to be undeveloped and designated as park, again, the protected area is, I'm very concerned that the subdivision will adversely affect the park area, which has very sensitive habitat. I'm concerned that the trees, once the trees that are cut down for the subdivision, will that open up the remaining trees to wind forces that bring them down. This very thing happened on my property due to the clearing of the trees on Walford Road, because I'm bounded on Langford. The entire property is ecologically sensitive, and in my view, it should be protected. I just wanted to say that I agreed with the excellent points made by the previous callers on this subdivision proposal, including emphasizing the special characteristics of this hillside property, how this development is not consistent with the OCP, and the traffic impacts, which I believe will be considerable. I'm not unsympathetic to the applicant, having invested the time and money to get to this point, but I just don't think that should be determinative. It's really going to have a big consequential impact on the community if the subdivision is proposed. A proposal is accepted. And so finally, my last point is that protecting the entire property to me is critical if the City of Colwood hopes to convey to its residents that we are a community serious about tackling climate change and the loss of habitat and biodiversity. As we all know, we had a summer heat dome that took hundreds of lives, and unprecedented rainfall and flooding in recent days that have caused devastating, far-reaching impacts for our community and our province. The subdivision alone will add, I believe, 80 or more cars into the mix, because everyone knows that Triangle Mountain is not walkable to access amenities, and it will require driving from A to B for virtually everything. And of course, protecting our trees is critical because they capture CO2, they retain groundwater, they clean our air, they clean our water. I just feel that there are many other areas in Colwood that are suited for infill and densification. This site is just not one of them. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your input. What I am going to do then is I'm going to do a second call for anyone wishing to speak either online or in the building. And I am going to take 30 seconds to just sort of pause and give people an opportunity. If anyone, even if you have already spoken, I would encourage you to come and speak again if you have any additional comments that you'd like to add. And as I said, unfortunately, 30 seconds feels like an eternity, but we just have to wait online to. Oh, and I do have a hand.
So we do have 304 would like to speak again. Please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, Your Worship, I just have a question. Are we allowed to ask questions of the developer at this point, or is that not in?
You're allowed to just ask a clarifying question. You can still ask the question, and what we can do is find the answers for you, but I can't guarantee that we would be able to answer it this evening. So please feel free to pose the question, and then we'll see if we could answer it tonight, or if we'll have somebody follow up with it.
I know you're kind of hung up on the number 43, but I'm wondering, is there a way that the project can be done with fewer units? That would be my question to the developer.
Okay. I'm not going to look to them tonight to answer that question, but what did we record your phone number, or do we have a way of contacting you?
I've submitted a written letter as well.
Okay, so great. So we do have your contact information. So what I can do is ensure that staff pass on your information to the developer. And oh, sorry, go ahead, Amanda. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you just repeat your name for us?
Sorry, it's Eric Solomon.
Eric, thank you, Eric. And so what we'll do is we'll ensure that someone answers those questions for you tomorrow, or as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? We're still in my second call. I'm just looking to Amanda just to ensure there's nobody online either. Nope. Okay. So what I will do then is I will call for a third and final time to allow anyone wishing to speak, or if you're watching online, to please, this is your opportunity. And it doesn't sound like we have anyone else. So what I will do is just look for a motion to close the public hearings. Moved by Councillor Jansen. We'll call the question. Those in opposition? Nobody opposes. The meeting is over. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for attending, everyone.